Hi, I'm Bill Ringle. I'm a results leader, and I'm here to be on the podcast with you today.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
Welcome back to another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. I've got a treat for you today. He is a trusted business advisor. He helps businesses grow and create better leaders and better people. Today, Mr. Bill Ringle is on the other side of the mic. Let's jump in. Bill, welcome to the show. Good to see you again. Are you ready to do this?
I am, Jonathan. I'm ready.
Let's give our listeners a quick win. What book have you given most as a gift?
I've given lots of books to clients. Typically, I give them books that they need in the moment, wherever they are in the moment. But some of the ones that I've given most often are the E-Myth Revisited, typically for people who are just completely buried in their business. For people who have management problems, I've given them the 1 Minute Manager. For more sophisticated and advanced businesses, I've gone to things like Good to Great or Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. You know, a lot of people have time management issues, so I stick with Eat the Frog on that one.
Dude came in swinging for the fences. What'd you do, a quadruple? Yeah, that's a home run right there. 4 of them.
Depends on what they need.
Right. And I like it. It's a prescription. It's by prescription. I dig it, man. So I want you to think back and tell us a story of how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
Well, that's an easy one. Back when I was in my mid-30s, I bought a closed steel mill and reopened it. Some partners and I started this thing from scratch and built it up to about $10 million a year and 50 employees. And I ran that business for about 10 years. What I didn't know at the time was that the investors we had held all the cards. And so I ended up selling my interest in that business, because after 5 or 6 years, I realized I was never going to get control of it. That was a major, major disappointment. That was my baby that grown there. But what I didn't realize was how well that would prepare me for what I'm doing today. And if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing today.
What do you mean when you said the investors held all the cards?
Well, to buy a steel mill, it was about $1 million. My partner and I mortgaged our houses, and we had to get outside investors. They kind of, back in those days, this was before anybody called them entrepreneurs or angel investors. I think we had devil investors. They came to us and said, how much do you guys have to put in? And they ended up being the majority owners, very absentee, never came to the business or anything like that. But I spent the next 5 years trying to buy it back from them, and they were unwilling to give it up.
And you said that prepared you for what you're doing today. How did it prepare you?
Well, when we started this place, it was had been closed down for a year. So there was nothing there but a bunch of rusty old equipment. And we had to put a system in for sales. We had to put a system in for purchasing. We had to put an accounting system in. We had to put a metallurgical system in, operations. Basically, we had to create all of those systems from scratch. You learn by doing. And so that's what gave me intimate knowledge of all these parts of a business.
Trial by fire, as they say.
So it was.
What would you say is the most worthwhile investment that you have ever made?
Well, certainly investing in that closed steel mill. I mortgaged my house to do it. I didn't realize what a long-term advantage that would be from a learning perspective. But no question, that was the most important investment I ever made.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time now. I mean, I think that one of the things I do is I prepare Sunday night for what I'm going to accomplish in the coming week. That's always been a good thing. Write down, just an objective or two a day, and that has kept me on course.
So the Sunday game plan. Now, are you also one of these guys that starts the day with a ritual as well?
Exercise. Yeah, I start the day with exercise every day. I try not to look at email until later and start working first thing in the morning when I'm the freshest on my highest priority.
Let's have a little fun. What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
I don't know. When I first started this 18 years ago, there were a lot of people were calling themselves business coaches. And what I found is that a lot of these guys didn't have actual real world experience. They may have bought a franchise or somehow got into this, and they seem to be talking about the soft skills a lot. That has given people in my industry somewhat of a bad name. I work on the financials, operations. I work on what I would call the hard skills and really don't get into the soft skills that much.
What is the difference? Can you give us an example of what soft skills versus hard skills are?
The soft skills are more like, again, nothing against life coaches, but, when you're talking to a business and a guy wants to improve his business, he wants concrete action. He wants results. And sometimes these soft skills are about, how do you feel? What are your goals? What are this, just a lot of, I call fluffy kind of stuff that, people get frustrated with that after a while. I mean, it may sound good for a couple of weeks, but they want results.
So what's the other side of that? What are the hard skills? So you're saying the soft skills are feelings, emotional. What are the hard skills?
The hard skills are understanding their financials. I mean, I am amazed that very profitable, successful businesses, the owners don't know how to use their financials reports as a tool to manage their business. So I go in there, and the first thing I do is I look at their financials and I try to make an assessment of whether they're correct or not, whether things are in the right place. And then once we get them correct, I make a ritual of every month going through their financial reports, typically their P&L report and their cash flow report, and to see, how did they do? Did they do well? Well, the question is why? Why did we do well this month? If we didn't do well, the same question, why? And so after about 6 months of that, they get to the point where they're bringing the financials to me and pointing things out. And that's a typical hard skill. Other hard skills are managing employees. I haven't met anybody yet that the employees weren't the biggest challenge. There's so many variables with people. I teach them how to hold people accountable, not in a strict or punitive sort of way, but just give people objectives and help them meet them.
I feel like I want to ask more on this for some reason, but
Go for it.
Give us an idea, because we're having this similar conversations here. That's probably why. But give us an idea of how you use financials to run the business. What are you looking for? What are you looking at? And how do you know? How do you figure out we did something right, we did something wrong?
The first thing that people need to know is that the most important number on the financial report is your gross profit. And again, if you're making a product, or it's different if there's a service, but certainly if you're making anything, there are costs involved with making those, direct costs. And so you get a certain amount of money into the business, your income, that's the top line, right? And then it costs you certain amounts of money for labor and materials or whatever you have to deliver that product or service, really. And what's left is your gross profit. And that number is what you have left for the rest of the period, usually a month, to spend on everything else, which is typically called your overhead. So my main point is, if you don't make it in your gross profit, you can't make it anywhere else. You have to get it at that top level. And so I get them concentrating on what the gross profit is. We measure the percentage. We track it over time to see if that gross profit is eroding or hopefully maybe increasing a little bit. Does that help?
Oh yeah, excellent. I'm going through this. We're restructuring and we're doing some EOS work, and we're being challenged with the financials right now, and that's why I think it's just a fun topic and very interesting and timely for me. All right, we're about to get into the results portion of the show, but before we do that, I gotta ask you, have you shared the show? If you're digging what I'm laying down here, then I want to ask you to share this show with somebody who will find it helpful. Share it on your social medias. Use the hashtag ResultsLeaderFM, and I'll be looking for you out there. Thank you. So let's talk about results. Why do results matter?
Because that, at the end of the day, is the only thing that you can put your hand on. Now, what kind of results are we talking about? I mean, obviously, most people are looking at growing sales and growing profit. One of the things I've learned over the years that I've focused on more in later years is building value in the business. And, you can grow a business to a huge thing and still not have a lot of value. So there are a lot of drivers of value in business. Every business has different ones, but I have focused more on driving value in the business. So no business is forever. At some point, every owner is going to come to this point where they either are tired and want to stop working, or they want to pass it on to their heirs, or they want to sell it or something. And that's when it really matters. And you hear a lot about private equity people. They come in and they'll buy your business for some big number, and everybody thinks, oh, that's a great deal. But they know what the drivers of the business are, and they would not give you that money unless they knew for certain that they could improve it. And so that's what they do. They come in and they go after those drivers of business and they improve them. And to me, there's no reason why you can't do that ahead of time. You don't have to wait for a private equity firm to come and do it. So that's what I've focused on. Yes, we certainly watch profit every month. We want profit to be high. If the owner wants to increase sales, yes, we do that. But there are all these other drivers of business as well.
In the last 5 years, what new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
I think the thing that we just talked about, Jonathan, and not focusing strictly on increasing sales or profit, but focusing on the drivers of business value.
Talk to me a little bit more. Give us some examples, because it's an interesting choice of words, driver of value versus profit, because most of us think in terms of profit. So what are some drivers of value?
So obviously, I'm not discounting profit. Profit is very essential. We want to keep profit, stable and, whatever is typical for that industry. I mean, but there are two things that value a business. There are the tangible things, which are all the assets, obviously. And then there are a bunch of intangible factors. The most famous one, Jack Welch, the GE guy, said, if you're not number one or two in your industry, he was going to sell it and get somebody that was one or two. Well, that's all about market dominance. How much control do you have over your industry? I mean, are you at the whim of competitors who have a lot of impact on the price, or can you have more impact? So that's a typical driver there. Another driver of business is management. In many of these businesses, the small to medium-sized businesses I deal with, the owner is the whole driver of the business. This guy can't go on vacation because if he leaves, the whole thing stops working. He's got to keep it going. And so another driver of business is having competent supervision and competent management so that the business will run without the owner's constant impact. I mean, that's a typical one there. Very, very common. Does that help?
Oh, yeah. I'm all for, Dan Sullivan calls it having a self-managing company. I don't want the company relying on me. And that's actually what we're going through right now, that everybody's been leaning on me for years. I mean, that's fine, but there's a point where I can't, and this is just putting it out there so you guys know where we're coming from, but I can't run this thing. I can't answer the questions. This is your company. You guys do it. I'll just do what I do to bring value to them. But yeah, we're going through all of that right now because we want an actual company, not a job. And I think that's the big difference. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about your business. What area of your business would you like better results?
I have kind of designed this business around my lifestyle. I mean, I've been presidents of companies where you work 6 days a week from 7 in the morning till 6 at night. And when I designed this business, I didn't really want it to be that way. I designed a business that wasn't based on my time, but on the value and the results that I bring. So I charge clients a fixed flat monthly fee. It doesn't matter. They have unlimited access to me. One of the things that used to frustrate me when I was in business is if you'd call your lawyer and accountant, you'd start watching your watch because you're going to get billed for every 15 minutes. Well, I didn't want that in my business. I wanted them to use me. I wanted them to have me. And so that's been worked out very well. The other thing that I spent a lot of years traveling, both domestically and internationally. And when I did this, I said, I don't want to do this traveling anymore, especially with all the security and things like that. So I have focused my business basically on a regional thing. The interesting thing that I learned through the pandemic is that although clients want to see me face to face, they enjoy that. When the pandemic hit, they didn't want to do that as much anymore. So I adopted Zoom, and I found that it works just as well without being face to face. So now I have clients in different parts of the country that I wouldn't have even considered before because I thought I had to travel to them. So that's been kind of a little mini innovation for me.
I want to hear a little bit more about this idea of designing a business, because most people create a business. I don't know if we talked about eMyth, but I have. Yeah, you mentioned eMyth. In
Yeah.
fact, they design a job for themselves, right? That's actually what they build, a thankless job. And so, is this a reality? Can you put your life first and then build a business around it? Is that a real thing?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think I've done it for many, many people. And I think it's absolutely true that people own a job rather than own a business. And, the whole eMyth story is, why do people start businesses? Well, they do something they know. I mean, why did I buy a closed steel mill? Because I'd worked in the steel industry for all those years. Typically, what you do when you buy a business is you do what you know. If you're a plumber and you start a plumbing business, you start fixing pipes. And, you keep fixing pipes until you can't keep up, and then you hire somebody, but you still are not running a business. And that transition from doing the work of the business to running a business is a difficult transition to make. And, very few people can make it on their own. I mean, you can read books, but it's tough. It's tough. It helps to have somebody to guide you through that process.
I'm with you, man. When we decided to put EOS into our business, I read the book, I had the tabs, and I told everybody, we're hiring help because we'll never do this on our own. I'd rather have a third party in there helping us out. So what results are you most proud of?
I think the thing that I'm most proud of is the relationships I've developed with the clients over these years. I mean, one of the things that happened just yesterday was a client called me with a question. There was something troubling them. I hadn't heard from this client for 2 years, but they felt comfortable to call and, kind of talk it out with. And I've got clients that I dealt with 15 years ago that I still hear from occasionally. And I don't want to make it sound like I hear from them every day. I don't. But, if I reach out to them, it'll usually be a phone call or they might have a question for me. And that has been very, very gratifying to have those kind of relationships based on trust. And they know that, I exist to help them. That's really all I'm here for.
Any parting thoughts you want to share with the results leaders who are listening to us right now?
I think, the main thing is you can do it. I mean, like you said, I mean, there's lots of resources out there. That book Traction that you mentioned a couple of times, I've read that book. It's a great book. You have to learn. You have to learn to earn. Nobody is born with this stuff. Certainly, I've gone through MBA and everything else, and I didn't learn this stuff in school. There's so much to learn after you leave school or after you start your business, and you just have to keep learning. Once you learn what to do, it's possible. Basically, what I do is I'm a shortcut to learning. I keep you from reinventing the wheel on things that I know already you have to do.
Excellent. I know our listeners are going to want more. Where can they go to get more of you, Bill?
Well, typically my website is a great place. It's www.systemringle.com. When I first launched this, believe it or not, there was another guy with my name that had my name already. So I came up with System Ringle as an alternative. And it's worked out pretty well because what I do is I put systems and procedures in businesses so that the owner doesn't have to do it themselves. They build the system, you teach the people to do the system, then the people run those systems. And I think that's kind of the basis for a lot of this.
Powerful, powerful. We have been speaking with Mr. Bill Ringle. Thank you for taking some time out to rap with us. And thank you, results leaders, for tuning in. We'll be back in your earbuds next time.
It's been fun, Jonathan. Thank you.
That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard. We'll catch you on the next one.
This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.